Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. Sorry this is getting out to you guys late, but I do have a strategy pod for the 2021 Vivint Houston Open for you guys. Reason it's coming out late is we have the Masters next week, and I've been doing a lot of research for the Masters. And I won't lie, I kind of had a little late start with this. Got my videos out for the course fit on Monday a little late, and also with the recent form pod/video I did last night. So again, my apologies. The Masters a little more important than this tournament, so priorities were kind of shifted. But hopefully this reaches you guys in time where it can make a little bit of a difference when it comes to your lineups. I feel like I have a really good pod/video here for you guys. So you can find timestamps in the description. I also have chapter mode enabled, the little red progress bar that's going across, or that's on YouTube. You can see the different segments that I'll be talking about. You can get there really quickly looking at that. But before I get into the video, I've done a poor job doing this in the last couple videos/pods that I've done for the course fit as well as the recent form videos. Chad Eckert and I are creating a spreadsheet together for the Masters. We did it for the US Open, and we also did it for the Tour Championship. We are offering two different types of spreadsheets this time. One is going to be the same one you've seen for the US Open and the same one you've seen for the Tour Championship. But we are going to provide a little bit more detailed one, and it'll cost a few dollars in order to get access to. And basically, if you want an idea what that's going to look like, you can look at the recent form video that I created yesterday. I put the dream sheet on there. I am going to have at least my part filled out with that sheet. So it's going to have a lot of great stats, a lot of great pieces of information on it. You can easily get there. And like I said, it's going to cost a few dollars. So you can either pay attention to our Twitter or visit here on YouTube. I will be linking where you can find those spreadsheets in all of my Masters videos. And of course, like I said, it's going to be on Twitter. So you can either follow me, SweetSpotDFS, or you can follow Chad Eckert at Edina Real Chi or the Fantasy Golf Pod. And you should be able to find links to that spreadsheet there. So that's a little housekeeping item that I wanted to get out of the way. Let's go ahead and dive into the spreadsheet. I usually always start these off with the strategy pod/videos with the bucket system. And if you have not, or if this is your first time here, welcome. If you have never heard about it, I will link a video right up there, top right-hand corner, explaining what the bucket system is. I also have it on my Twitter. It's the top video. It's a pinned tweet, so you can easily get there as well. But those that do know what the bucket system is, for the Houston Open, it's questionable. And it's only questionable because typically when we look at the last year bucket, we like to see the same golf course being played year in and year out. This year, it's a new golf course. So you can question whether or not the bucket system will be, effective. I guess that's the best word I'm looking for. But I'll say this. Other tournaments that have changed golf courses really don't alter the buckets. I will say this. I think, I'm trying to remember a good example of courses that change. I want to say the Wells Fargo, when it had to be played at Eagle Point Golf Course, that tournament, it really, the buckets remain the same. And a huge reason, in my opinion, why that is, the same golfers are typically playing the Houston Open. And I think you have basically relatively the same strength of field. You're going to have a lot of the same B tier, C tier golfers as you would A tier golfers or elite golfers. However you want to tier them. I mean, we basically say we see the same crowd year in and year out. And this is a staple for some of the guys. So a lot of results kind of stay the same. And I expect that the last year bucket will stay the same as well. So I have no issues going with the last year bucket for the golfers we will look at on the DraftKings page. So what does the last year bucket look like? Well, your number one bucket are golfers who did not play. And that comes at a 31% clip. So over the last 6 years, golfers we've seen inside the top 10, we've seen 31% of the time. For last year bucket 2 golfers, 21%. Last year 3, 20%. So those 3 buckets by themselves almost make up the entire 100% of golfers inside the top 10. I will be going heavy on last year 1s, 2s, and sprinkling in 3s. For the most part, when I look at the min-max, which I like to do, is looking at, obviously, the minimum number within these buckets throughout the last 6 years. The last year 3s, we've seen at least 1 inside the top 10. Last year 1s, the minimum was 1. And last year 2s, we actually see a goose egg in 2016. So that one, probably not as reliable. But then when you look at the numbers, you see 4 in 2020, 3 in 2018, 4 in 2015, and 3 in 2014. As opposed to, say, the last year 3, although we've seen 1 every single year, it's relatively 1. We have a couple 4s and a 3. So we see higher numbers with last year 1, last year 2. Just the last year 2 isn't as consistent, technically, as the last year 1. But last year 4, you can sprinkle in as well. The max is 3, but then when you get to the 5s and the 6s, it's not terrible. I'm going to say that. It's not as polarizing as we've seen in other tournaments. In fact, when we go to the bucket combination piece coming up here after this, I'll say it's really anyone's tournament. There is not a particular bucket combination that stands out over another. And we'll get there, so I don't want to confuse you more on that. Now, when we look at the last week bucket, another questionable thing is every year we typically play, within these stats since 2013, we typically play the Waste Management Open and whatever alternate event usually precedes that, whether it was the Corrales Punta Cana or the Puerto Rico Open. Either one of those tournaments goes hand in hand with a WGC event, like the match play event. We don't have the match play this week. We didn't have it, or not this week, but obviously last week. We also didn't have it in 2020. So you can kind of see the buckets kind of remain the same, of golfers who finished 1st to 20th the week before. And I altered that for the match play according to, basically the buckets you can put the match play in. Those that didn't make it past the pods, that counts as a missed cut. Here, I'll open this up. It's going to be difficult for you to see, but like 1st through 4th to me is very similar to 1st through 20. 5th place would be 21 to 40. I know it's just one placement, but that's one less round than what 1 through 4 had to play. 9th place, 41 through 60. Again, one less round than what, say, 5th place had to. And then 17th would be 61 to 80. There wouldn't be a technical miscut per se. So yeah, that's how I look at last week's stats. Anyways, buckets pretty much still stay the same. And it's very, we look at this week in, week out. These numbers pretty similar usually, where your did not plays number 1. Sometimes, it's not always number 1, but a lot of the times it ends up being because it's a larger group of golfers. But either way, your last year 1s are your number 1 bucket for the last week, or the last week bucket. That's 36.36% of, all golfers from 2013 to 2020 that finished inside the top 10. That is followed up by golfers who missed the cut, which is 23.38%. And golfers 1st through 20th follow 16.88%. So really, the last year and last week bucket, very similar to each other in numbers, very similar to each other in percentages as well. If we look at the min max, I mean, your ones, your twos, your threes all have at least one in them. So you can find a little bit more consistency if you were to choose golfers from those buckets. Your max obviously are golfers who did not play. We see 6 3 times. So if you wanted to make a lineup with nothing but last week ones, very easy to do so. I don't know if I personally recommend it, but you certainly can. I think really a good strategy would just be looking at each year. 2 out of 6 years we've seen only one. So if I were to create lineups, I would just put, obviously 2 out of 6 is 33%. 33% of my lineups would just have 1. 33% of my lineups would have 4. Is this 30? Oh, this is 7 weeks. I'm sorry. So just do the calculations. 2 out of 7. What is that? 14%, I think. Yeah, 2 out of 7 would be 14%. 3 out of 7, we don't have that. 4 out of 7 ends up being 57%. And 6 out of 7, or 3, I'm sorry, 3 out of 7 is there. I don't even know where I'm going with this. We're looking 2 out of 7. That's actually 28%, right? No. Where am 0 out of 7, 1 out of 7, 2 out of 7? Yeah, 28%. Sorry, 28% is 2 out of 7. So you see that. Oh boy, 28% of my lineups will only have 1. Last year 1. 28% of my lineups will have 4 last year ones, and then 42% of my lineups will have at least 6. I'm gonna go with something like this, and I have no issue doing that whatsoever. Late, lot of data crunching. Sorry if that was painful for you guys. And obviously, I'll probably do the same thing with the other ones, or maybe just mix them in. Like, it doesn't really matter that much. But anyways, let's move on. I look at bucket combinations and look to see what bucket combination jumps out. Really, when you look at it, we have so many different colors week in or year in, year out at this tournament that the combinations, really nothing sticks out more than 3 or 4 times per bucket. And I do have to admit something. I did not finish basically from here on. So these, are nothing really to look at. But for these two, for the last year 2 combinations, or last year 1 and last year 2, other than a 2-1 showing up 5 out of 6 years, I don't have specific stats to go with it. When I first looked at this, I'm like, there's none. Usually you see 1-1s quite a bit, but it almost skips a year, or it skips a couple years. And every time we do see a 1-1, we see multiple 1-1s. So that's something you can look at. Other than that, I really don't have anything to go with bucket combinations this week. I think, 2-1s, 3-1s. I'm not going to put a lot of investment on bucket combinations, so I would advise you guys not to as well. Usually I would also then do like the count, but I failed to do that. This is just a placeholder, so don't look at these numbers. I just could not get there quick enough in order to provide this video for you guys early enough. So we're going to go to the next piece, which would be kind of a salary breakdown. I like to look at top 5 and top 10 salaries. Basically what that means is, of the golfers who finished top 10 or top 5, what were their salaries, and what was their place? So you can see what their places are here, what the salaries, coincide with. You can see what all this looks like. I also do a count for top 5 and top 10. And this is really just to get an idea of so 6,900 shows up 4 times over 3 years that I have salary data for. 4 out of 3 years it shows up. That's impressive. And it shows up every year. So 6,900 shows up a lot. Now, does that mean, boom, you just go to all the 6,900 golfers and just slam them in? You certainly can. We can go look to see who those $6,900 golfers are. You had Sung Kang in 2017. 2018, you had Bo Hosler. And I guess if you look at their recent form, 69.75 for Bo, 61 for Sung Kang, and then we go to 2020, Scott Harrington, 44. So really, you could use a lot of that data however you want. There are a lot of, I wouldn't so much say no-namers, because obviously Bo Hosler was an up-and-coming guy. Obviously, he lost to Ian Poulter, but he had a 39th place finish the year before. Sung Kang had a 69th place finish the year before, and Scott Harrington didn't play. So you just have a wide assortment of $6,900 golfers that finished inside the top 5. Basically, all I'm trying to say is, I think you want a high-priced 6K golfer in all of your lineups. And to me, it doesn't really matter, but I actually have some golfers in mind to put in that 6,900 range. So really, I would be looking at anyone from 67 to maybe 7K, and just jamming in almost one golfer of each. And I actually might just do that, because it's a small enough range and it's going to work out. So we'll see how I feel about that, but I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. So that's what I do with like top 5 count and top 10 count as well. Obviously, you see more 6,900s, 7,100s, 8,000s, a lot of guys in the 6K to 7K range. 11,100 shows up once. So you got a lot of high price guys right here. And I do have this sorted by salary from expensive to least expensive. That way we can kind of see and gauge how important is it to have a 10K or above golfer in our lineups. And honestly, we look at 2017, your optimal lineup was 49,700. Oh, I have it over here, which is not terrible. In 2018, your optimal lineup was 47,800. And I guess that included did I just talk about 2018? Are those the same numbers? Okay, never mind. The 7 and the 8s kind of mixed me up. In 2020, though, the optimal lineup was 44,900. And the GPP winning lineup was 48,900. So a lot of money is left on the table. And last year, we didn't see any 10K guys. Yeah, no 10K guys inside of the top 10. Who were those top 10 guy or 10K and above? Really nobody's, honestly. You had Henrik Stenson at the top, followed by Cam Champ, who got his first win. Actually, his second win, I believe, right? Yeah, Sanderson Farms was the year before. So his second win at the Safeway. And then Brian Harmon, Daniel Berger, Russell Henley. Obviously Russell Henley has really good course history at this, or I should say tournament history now at this event. But when you look at this year, not a lot of elite golfers. So I wouldn't so much take this as a year of fading. I'm saying 2021. So this current year, I wouldn't take anyone that's 10K and above and just fade them, because the field, or those guys that are 10K and above, are leaps and bounds better than what you just saw here. Leaps and bounds better than this 10K and above range. So yeah, we didn't see a 10K golfer in 2020, but you could chalk that up to strength of field. Really, the 10K and above golfers, some were not even worthy of being in the 10K range, but obviously with Cameron Champ, playing really well and the strength of field just being low, that's why you saw it. So yeah, I would not worry about playing, leaving a lot of money on the table. I do think, fluctuate somewhere between 1,500 and 200 on the table. You could even go 50,000. Like I honestly don't care, but this looks like a tournament where you see a lot of low price guys more so in the top 5 than high price guys. And if you were to go with something like that with your lineup, more than likely you're still going to do well if you hit with the right guys. It's just whether or not how risky you're willing to take it. I do an average salary over here. The average salary is $78.97 in the top 10. What that tells you is DraftKings has 8,300, that you can work with making lineups. Whenever this number is lower than 83.33, it's basically telling you not a lot of high price guys finish inside the top 10 or top 5, which means you could leave a lot of money on the table. Bypass the 10K range and pretend your 9K golfers are 10K golfers. Or maybe you just jam in some of your 10K guys, knowing which 9K guys you want, and build lineups that reach $50,000 and then replace the 10K guys with 9K guys. I mean, if that's the route you want to take, if you feel so bold, that's not a terrible way to do it. The minimum we've seen in the top 10, 6,100, the maximum 11.1. And then there's a little bit of a breakdown here. 10K and above, golfers inside the top 10, we've seen 11% of them being 10K and above, 8% of them being 9 to 7 or 9 to 10K, 25% being 8 to 9, so a pretty good threshold there. 20% being 7 to 8, not terrible either, but your meat of the top 10 belongs below the 7K range, so in the 6K range. 34.29%. All of our winners fell somewhere between 7 and 9K. Those are manually put there. They're not calculated. There you go. So now that we've done the bucket system and a pricing breakdown, we can combine that with, one last thing. I shouldn't say last thing. How do I want to present this? So I want to talk about Time Pairings, and I want to tell you how I got to basically my color process. So let me take the filter back off because I do want to talk about this. I usually color code these based off of scoring averages. Obviously, okay, so the darker the green, the better the group for scoring average. And I look at everything from field average and below. So anyone that's highlighted here has a scoring average that's field average or better. So here's something, this is what that looks like. Basically, let me go ahead and hide this information and filter it this way. What I'll end up doing is looking at the scoring average from last year. And this is all of 2020, the 2019-2020 season. But obviously that was the season of 2020, so I'm going to call it 2020. I will do something like this, kind of use the Excel function that's being hidden right now, but wherever the mouse goes, right down here, obviously there's a function down there that shows you the average, the sum, and stuff like that. When I highlight that entire range, the average ends up being 70.94. So anyone who is actually better than 70.94 automatically gets, first of all, I sort it by tee times, and then anyone that's under 70.94, I will highlight. And what I'll base that highlighted color off of is how many golfers are under field average. If it's only one, you color them red. So I have a red right here for Shane Lowry. He's the only golfer in his group that has a scoring average below field average. The next one would be if there were 2 golfers in your group, I would highlight that yellow then, which means obviously 2 golfers who have a scoring average below field average. Light green means 3. And I did it a little different this year. So not only did I look at scoring average, I also looked at recent form scoring average. So I put that right here, and anything that was below field average there, which is 70.33, I highlighted green. And with all of that, I know I might have lost some of you guys. If they had a scoring average, here, I can easily show this to you guys. Not so much easy, but I can hide some columns, bring it over. That way you guys can see. see, how do I get this without a P? Okay, there we go. Perfect. So now I have the recent form scoring average, which comes from my recent form page, which I obviously have filtered for you guys as well. But this would be looking at the last 7 weeks, which is what we covered in the recent form video / pod. This would be their scoring average. And if it's highlighted, so I put a conditional on there that if it's under field average, it gets highlighted green. If that was highlighted green, this was also, at one point in time, I had a filter on this to show me who was also under field average. If both of them were green, automatic dark green. And I actually, so the darker the green, the better. That means more golfers were in their group, their tee time pairing, that were both under field average for recent form scoring average and under field average for season long scoring average. So hopefully I explained that one pretty decent. But yeah, I looked at recent form scoring average as well as season long scoring average and put or assigned these game numbers colors. Game just means, I mean, let's filter. Let's put a filter on this. I'm going to open this back up because I think it's just filtered by color. So we'll get none. Basically, what I ended up doing was, if I sort by game, you can see it goes from early morning all the way through in the afternoon. And it starts on hole 1. So hole 1, early morning, is game 1. Your first tee time off on hole 1 is game number 1. Game number 2, also the same. And there's also a funny story about that. And the way that I'm doing this is exactly how tiebreakers are determined off of pairing golfers round after round. It was funny. I can't remember which tournament it was, but two golfers were determining, who gets to be paired with whoever in a group. And they were asking the tour officials, well, what happens if we tie? Like, how do you determine which guy goes, in the last round versus the second to last round? And it goes, well, whoever finishes first, with the lowest score, or whoever finishes, not the lowest score, whoever finishes first at the score posted, since they were first in, they are, I think, first in, last out. Is that how it goes? Yeah, if you post first, you go out later. So they asked, well, what happens if we finish at the exact same time? The scores get posted at the exact same time. Your next tiebreaker is whatever hole you started on, or whatever. Yeah, it was definitely for the cut. That's how it was. So it was like, then it goes down to whatever hole you started on. And hole 1 gets the nod over hole 10. So how I number these by game, it was fun. I think I just heard it last week, so it must have happened at what was last week? I forget. The Bermuda Championship, where they were talking about it. So it was kind of fun that my data was validated in a way. Game 1 would go to hole number 1. Game 2 would be to hole number 10. So that's how it goes. Long-winded, but I thought it was interesting to share. But yeah, that's how the game numbers are. And obviously you can see these guys here are all colored green. All of them are under the field average of 70.94. And then a few of them are, or two of them, Sabatini and Jones, are also under field average for recent form scoring average. And that's why they're a darker color. So that's how I ended up doing that. If we go ahead and just sort by that darkest green color, we get a small amount of golfers that you could possibly create your lineups with, because you have Tony Finau at 10.9, Sergio Garcia at 9.1, and Sung Jae at 93. Russell Henley is also in that mix at 94. You could easily go with any 4 of these golfers. Obviously, Tony Finau and Sergio are playing together. Bradley, and Garnett are playing together, so that might not be a terrible combination to go with. I personally like Sabatini, and if we needed a $6,900 golfer, Sabatini might be the best play. he's at 69. Matthew Naismith at 7. Now I said that 67 to 7K range I would include for that 69. But you might actually get to, be able to play these two guys, or even Adam Schenk, having him as well. I think that's a wonderful way to try to create lineups, and I would love to see if this actually pans out. During the review video, we'll definitely look at this to see if this actually works out in our favor. Because if it does kind of go by recent scoring average, that would be extremely, extremely interesting. But yeah, so I guess for my audio listeners, let me tell you what this group entails. There are 12 golfers that I've just recently been talking about that excel more likely. They both have, or I should say they both. Each of these golfers have, or they're below scoring average for the field average. Again, this was 70.94. So for my YouTube viewers, you can see everyone is underneath 70.94 when it comes to season-long scoring average. And when it comes to recent form scoring average, 70.33, they're all under that as well. So not only are they better than field average, well, obviously I don't need to repeat that, but they are excelling season long and recent form wise versus the field. But anyways, that group of golfers: Tony Finau at 10.9, Russell Henley at 9.4, Sungjae Im 9.3, Sergio at 8.1, Sergio at 9.1, Cameron Davis at 8.1. That's an interesting name. I'd heard a lot of hype. Obviously, he's been a pretty popular name over the last month, I would say. I originally thought I just wanted to fade him, but the fact that his scoring average season long as well as recent form is under the field average, I like that a lot, especially at 8,100. And we do want to see, I think you do want one, if not two, 8K golfers. Next guy in line is Cameron Tringali, Matt Jones, Keegan Bradley, Adam Schenk, Matthew Naismith, Rory Sabatini, and Bryce Garnett. So if I were to also then, if we were looking at buckets, really, if you wanted to anchor any of your last year ones, I think Tony Finau would be a fantastic play. I also think Sungjae Im would be another good play as well. Again, if you think there's a 1-1, more than likely there's going to be two 1-1s. Anytime there's been a last year one, last week one, inside the top 10 for any given year, there's at least been a second one. So it might be worth playing Tony Finau, Sungjae Im's, two of these guys, Finau, Im, Garcia, or Sabatini. And I think I'm probably going to start a lot of my lineups with Sabatini and one of these three guys. And then obviously we've seen a 2-1, 5 out of the last 6 years. I know I didn't get at that, but that would be Cameron Davis, Keegan Bradley, and Matthew Naismith. So really, we can make a lineup just with these golfers here. We can also include Cameron Tringali, but I'm not going to just get married to the fact that, those, I don't remember how many golfers, but that group of golfers, I don't think that needs to be my player pool. But obviously you certainly can. There were a lot of colors within them, I think is important. So I'm not going to go further down the tee time because I could obviously talk about every single golfer. But you got to see what the darker color was. I guess we can go to the next light green color, which is a bit bigger, like a bigger player pool. These guys, the reason the color isn't as dark is because they either aren't under field average for recent form scoring average, or they aren't under field average for season long scoring average. But the rest of the golfers in their group have one or the other or both. Here, let me just show you what that looks like on the screen. So basically, if we were to sort by this, we can see here the very first group: Sabatini, Jones, and Norlander. So Sabatini and Jones, and that's Rory Sabatini, Matt Jones, they're both a darker green than Henrik Norlander because Henrik Norlander is not below field average for scoring average. I mean, he's just above it at 70.44, but he also has just not been playing that well coming into this tournament. So that's why he's green, because he actually, for season-long scoring average, is underneath the field average, which was, again, 70.94. His is at 70.80. So that's why he is just a lighter shade of green. Here, I'll do this. I'll scroll through it. For those that are watching this on video, you'll get a little bit leg up of those listening. You can see all the tee times, and I'll go down page by page and just pause a little bit. And that way you guys can pause the video, look at these golfers, and try to determine who your favorite plays are based off of the color combination, since I've told you what that means. I think it would be interesting, you know, pairing maybe some of your PM golfers with your AM golfers, and I shouldn't even say PM, afternoon golfers with your morning golfers. I really don't like tee time stacks. I think it's I really don't think you get leverage that way. I think you hinder yourself way more than you can leverage from it. Interesting group here with Hatton, Tyrrell Hatton, Adam Scott, and Dustin Johnson. Very interesting group there. You can see we were just talking about Adam Schenk, and we're actually talking about all three of these golfers in, you know, that little breakdown of the best scoring averages for both season long and recent form. Schenk, Naismith, and Tringali both excel season long as well as recent form. So that was the rest of those golfers. We're not going to talk about tee time pairings anymore. One thing I do want to bring up, because it is worth noting, and because I've listened to a couple golfers now talk about this, I created this column here to show the golfers who are playing in the Masters. I think a lot of these high price guys, I mean, I definitely, here's what I'm gonna say. I don't trust Dustin Johnson, and I don't trust Brooks Koepka. I don't trust them because Dustin already said that this is kind of going to be a tune-up for him. It's going to be, you know, just to shake a little bit of the rust off. If he does well, he does well. But he's not really, I'll say this. He's not just going in this all willy-nilly, like he doesn't care to do well. He wants to see some progress going into the Masters. But honestly, he could be just tooling a lot of his shot shaping skills out at this course. Like, you really don't need much of a shot shape here. You can bomb the ball all over the place. I mean, there are some tight holes, but for the most part, course fit that we went through on Monday said you need to fade the golf ball. Dustin Johnson hits a fade. I wouldn't be surprised if he hits a bunch of draws, because you need to draw the golf ball more often off the tee at the Masters than you do hitting a fade. So he could really just be testing that out at this tournament. And I don't trust Brooks because his first tournament back was the CJ Cup, where he actually did score well. So it's worth mentioning. He did score pretty decent there. But, you know, coming back from injury, only having one competitive tournament under your belt, and it was a no-cut limited field, and you finished 20-some place, doesn't show that you are at the level you need to be, especially at a price tag like that. I also don't think he's really coming in this tournament trying to win. Although he was a consultant at this tournament, I don't think he's a golfer really worth rostering. I kind of want to say the same thing about Tyrrell Hatton, but for whatever reason, I think he's going to take it a little bit more serious. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, and Tyrrell Hatton, I'm only playing one share of each of those golfers. I'm not playing any more. I don't want to waste roster spots with them because I just don't trust them. I like Tony Finau. He's a guy who has yet to win on tour, minus the, what was it? Did he win at the Puerto Rico Open? Yeah, I think that's the Puerto Rico curse, right? I think it would be really good for him to do well at this tournament, especially going into the Masters. So I do have confidence Tony Finau is going to do well. Same with Matsuyama. Matsuyama's never been a golfer who just goes out and tries different shots. At least it hasn't been recorded, and I can't remember a time anyone's ever spotted that. So I think he can do well. The only issue I have with Matsuyama is right now he's just oh man, for his elite ball striking and what we expect him to be, he's just been middling. Like, he's not as good as he once was. I know some of his stats are turning around, but he just isn't putting the ball in the hole the least amount of times as we expect him to. So I don't like that. I do like Scheffler minus the last year 4 tag that he has. I also don't think he's going to cash it in, early to go to the Masters. He's young. It's worthwhile for him to do well. Same with Sung Jae Im. So those two golfers I feel safe playing. Adam Scott I think needs to do well. He had to withdraw from a tournament recently because of COVID, but I think even prior to seeing that, his recent form isn't terrible. We can go look really quickly. What does Adam Scott look like? Oh, just a 38th place finish at the US Open. So that's a long time for not golfing. And at 9,200, I mean, if Adam Scott was around 8K, let's say he was like 84, or he really should just be 82, if I'm being honest. If he was around 82, I'd feel way more comfortable playing him, but I don't. I'm not gonna cover every one of these golfers. But like, I don't trust Jason Day. I do like Sergio. Lanto, I don't think, at 8,900. First of all, I don't think he's going to repeat his performance. I think the best he can do is 7th place. I'm just going to say top 10, because I don't care if it's 7th or 6th or 5th. But at 8,900, I don't know. I guess that gives him some salary flexibility where he could be included in the optimal lineup. But if he finished 7th or worse, like, I don't think he's going to be in the optimal lineup that way, unless nobody above him finishes top 10 or top 5, I should say. But I'm basically forecasting that's going to happen. The only other person I really want to talk about is Jordan Spieth. I think, first of all, this is a good track for him. There's not a lot of trouble, not a lot of hazards. I don't care about the Texas narrative. I know a lot of people are posting like he does well in Texas, or he has done well in Texas. He hasn't done well at this tournament, really. I think he has a couple top 10s. Don't think I actually have this sorted, but we can certainly do that. Look at course history. Let's see. Where is Spieth? Right down here. He has 2 top 5 finishes, a 3rd and a 2nd. So I mean, he does have the capability, obviously, of finishing top 10 or better. And at his price tag, I think that's a really good price tag. I think Jordan needs to do well here to have any shot. And this is all, we're obviously talking about narratives now, but I think Jordan wants to do well here to have the confidence going into the Masters. So I do think he's going to, rein it in and be laser focused for this tournament. So I do like Jordan Spieth. So all the golfers really playing here, and these are again golfers playing the Masters. That's who we just went through. I like Jordan Spieth quite a bit at his 84 price tag. Only people I don't trust, again, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, and Tyrrell Hatton of the 10K golfers. I really don't trust or like Adam Scott or Jason Day. Now, I think Jason Day or Adam Scott could probably prove me wrong and do well at this tournament, even possibly win it, but I don't mind taking my chances elsewhere. So let's go ahead and bring everybody else back into the mix. Now, talking about Masters, talked about scoring average. You know that the golfers that are highlighted here have a better scoring average than field average, so we don't have to go through that. Recent form, we went through a lot of the stats with that, as well as compared it to season long. So if you wanted more of a stats look at the recent form video. what I want to do here is look at the SweetSpot Rank. So I incorporated a lot of pieces of information with this. I looked at scoring averages. I looked at the buckets. I looked at the Bermuda grass, and I weighted all of them and incorporated them into a rank. And the ranks are based off of their salary range. So I view my salary ranges as 10K and above, 9 to 10, 8 to 9, 7 to 8, and or below 7. So that's how they're compared. That's how they're ranked, is based off of their own salary bucket. If we go ahead and look to see who our number one ranked guy is, it's a $6,300 John Huh. And why he's up there is because his, I believe he has one finish at the Shriners. So his scoring average, his recent form scoring average, is really good. And gosh, what else makes him good? He has the last week bucket, but not the last year. Overall DK points is really good. And I don't know how many points that is, or like how many tournaments that covers. His recent form DK points are really good as well. So those are the two things that really boost his score up. And Bermuda's not terrible, but it's not good. Like, I think he's worse than field average. Field average is 50.16. John Huh is at 56.83. So not great. But really, the second guy I want to talk about, Rory Sabatini. We already brought his name up before, but Sabatini is now showing up a bunch of times. This is a tournament I like him at. And at $6,900, it's almost a slap in the face. You know, if we didn't see, say, Tony Finau, Dustin Johnson, or Brooks Koepka at this tournament, this guy's an $8,500 golfer. Like, easy. The fact that he's getting slapped in the face with that price tag, I think that's it's going to be a good thing for him. So if you're looking for, like, you know, first round showdown slates and stuff like that, I think Sabatini is a good play. I wouldn't be surprised if he does well. Kind of want to bring this up. This is where I gather most of my stats. If I look at Sabatini and look at his first round, we're not going to be able to tell first round average. 139. What's that divided by? 8 rounds? No. Well, 8 rounds means 2. So what's this divided in half? Near 60 something. It's around 70. 140 obviously is 70, so it's just 69. So not the greatest recent form, like recent form round 1 scoring average, but not terrible. Anyways, he's early in the morning. Early morning golfers get a big advantage for scoring well on Thursdays. Typically, I want to say if there's no weather issues, the best stack is probably the PM AM stack, but really it just depends on the golfer. Either way, Rory Sabatini I like a lot. He is the second ranked golfer in my SweetSpot model. Austin Cook is third. We just saw Austin Cook do well at the Shriners not too long ago. He placed second there. Priced down at $6,900. So, like, that's not terrible. That's pretty good. You can see the rest of the guys up here. So I'll hot fire say them. This is your top 20 for the SweetSpot rank. Starting with number 1, John Huh. 2, Rory Sabatini. 3, Austin Cook. 4, Patton Kizzire. 5, Nate Lashley. 6, Maverick McNeely. 7, actually this is a tie for 6. Adam Long is there. Tom Hoge is there. Andrew Landry. CT Pan. Then we go to 12th, Brandt Snedeker. Also 12th, Robbie Shelton. 2 guys tied at 14th, Scott Stallings and Charles Schwartzel. 16th alone is Will Gordon. 17th is tied between Zach Johnson and JT Poston. 19th there's a big tie for 19th, and that is Tony Finau, Denny McCarthy, Ollie Schneiderjans, who only has one really tournament under his belt over the last year and a half. Pretty much. That's not a specific time frame, but it's pretty close. Other guys tied at 19th, Matthew Naismith, Mark Hubbard, Carlos Ortiz, and Xinjun Zhang. That's how you pronounce his name, by the way. Xinjun Zhang. So that would be your top 20 for the sweet spot model. A lot of these guys are under 6K. Now, I'm not saying they're the best plays, but I try to create a very even weighted model. And obviously a lot of these golfers, because we have a lot of elite golfers at the top, a lot of these guys are kind of, you know, the best value in the 6K range. And that's essentially what this is kind of reinforcing. So despite I would never say John Huh is the best golfer in this field. Never. Why would I say something like that? So although he's ranked number 1, just put it this way. He's ranked number 1 for his price tag. I might actually change how that price tag or how I evaluate those golfers. I might have to weight down the 6K range a little bit more, primarily because there are more golfers in it, but we'll see. Either way, I like this for the 6K range. It's totally fine. If I were to go ahead and sort by salary, obviously the lower number you see in the rank over here, the better, and vice versa. The higher the number over on the sweet spot number, the better. So you can obviously see what the difference between 19th and 40th. It's 3 points. So like a lot of guys are probably tied within that, you know, 65 points, 64 points, 63 point, that kind of thing. And that's why they are ranked 40th. So he's not too far off of Tony. Now, Brooks, on the other hand, he's pretty far down. Same with Hideki when it comes to that model. Again, looking at grass stats, looking at scoring stats, both season long or last season as well as recent form. So it's interesting looking at it from this perspective. So your best golfer in the 10K range would be Tony Finau. Your best golfer in the 9K range would be Jason Day, believe it or not. Which is interesting. Oh, no, not Jason Day. I'm sorry. Looking at the wrong number. It's a tie between Sung Jae and Sergio. So obviously I like that. Your 8K range golfer, the best one is Zach Johnson, 17th. Followed by Siwoo Kim and James Hahn. Very interesting. Something notable, Shane Lowry, 102. He's one of the worst. Doc Redman, 95, and Corey Connors, 90. So we'll see how that pans out, you know, looking at finishes. Your 7K golfers, now I'm going to have to actually sort this by condition. We look here, our best ranked golfer is Brandt Snedeker. And I actually have something to add with that. Brandt Snedeker is the best 7K range golfer, followed by JT Poston, Denny McCarthy, Ollie Schneider-Jans, and Matthew Naismith. So really interesting looking at that. Let's see, who is the best official world golf ranking? Lee Westwood, and his rank is not good. Followed by Kevin Streelman, which is not bad. Eric Van Rooyen, Mackenzie Hughes, and then Henrik Stenson. Those are just official world golf ranking. Henrik Stenson's not good, like with the sweet spot rank. Again, we'll see how that transpires. But let's look at the 7K golfers. Best ranked golfer. I mean, we already know this, right? We just went through the whole top 20. Obviously, you can see that there. So I'm not going to mention any of those guys again. One last piece that I want to talk about before concluding this video. We're nearing an hour long, which is no surprise. But every year, so I've been paying attention to this heavily over the last month. I want to see what the strokes gained are for the tournament. You know, what they were leading into the tournament and what they are at the tournament. And what I've noticed is there's like I'd say like a 60-40 split. And really, actually, it's more like a 70-30 split. So there are usually two golfers who have negative off the tee stats. And if I were to go to 2020, the 2020 DK page, look at these guys that are up at the top. Just to show you what I'm talking about. Looking at the guys up at the top, this was so this tournament was played in the spring, or not the spring, the fall last year. And I don't remember how many tournaments did we have prior to. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we had 4, which is a good number because obviously stats can then get watered down a little bit. Otherwise, you have like these really crazy numbers that don't make any sense, like seeing someone's tee to green game being 13 strokes, which can happen early on in the season. But one thing I've noticed, typically trying to find golfers, you want to find 2 golfers that have negative off the tee, but positive strokes gained putting. This one's not going to work out for me for Taylor Gooch, but it does with Bud Cauley, it does with Stuart Sink. But what I'm getting at is I've seen this enough times to know that it's pretty consistent for each tournament. If you do have a negative off the tee golfer, it's very beneficial to find someone who has positive putting stats. Likewise, finding someone who has positive off the tee. So you can see a ton of guys here have positive off the tee inside the top 5. And a lot of them do have positive putting, not a lot, 2. But the other 4 have negative putting stats. And that's no surprise to me, really. When you look at strokes gained, and I should have a video out there, hopefully within this next month, about explaining strokes gained. The closer you hit the ball to the hole, and say you're not making birdies on every single hole, the worse your putting stats are going to be. But the better your other stats are going to be. It's going to be very rare, like Lonto Griffin, having positive stats all across the board. And if you do, you're going to be finishing pretty decent. I wouldn't be surprised if his recent form, 14.75. And I mean, you can kind of follow a lot of these guys that have good recent form and looking at their stats. Danny McCarthy might be the only exception, but Harris English minus around the green, and Lonto Griffin, a lot of them have positive stats. Obviously Danny McCarthy has really good strokes gained putting stats. It's really making the putt when it matters the most. So again, I'll try to cover that in another video when it comes to strokes gained. But either way, I've noticed that you want to find some positive off the tee with negative putters and vice versa. So what I've done for this week's tournament and what I have on the screen is I went to my recent form tab, and what I ended up doing was I wanted to look season-long good putters, decent putters who have poor putting stats. Not poor putting stats, I'm sorry. Good season-long putters. Is that how I filtered that? No, I did not. Okay, this is how. Let me explain this again. Start over, retake. I looked at golfers with less than 0 for strokes gained off the tee. That was my first filter. And then I went on and filtered by them having positive strokes gained off the tee. And just wanted to see how many guys that I had in that group. I do believe we're going to see one of these guys inside the top 10. So that's Brandt Snedeker, Charles Schwartzel, Tom Hoge, Nate Lashley, Tom Lewis, Andrew Landry, Henrik Stenson. And if we're looking at the SweetSpot rank, you can see a lot of them are at the top of the ranks. We already talked about Hoge. We already talked about Brandt Snedeker, Andrew Landry. Nate Lashley's kind of interesting. If you wanted a out there 1-1, last year 1, last week 1, Nate Lashley's not a bad play. But yeah, I do think one of these guys will finish top 10. Now, the only thing that I added with all of this was I don't think we necessarily need this. You know, we can look at all of these golfers and try to find bad off the tee to go with good putting stats. I mean, these numbers might be skewed a little bit. It looks like Brad Snedeker over 2 events has 5.16 strokes gained putting. That number will go down, but for his last 2 events, it's at 5.16. And that's not, I don't think that's adjusted when it comes to strength of field. So I don't know if that's how like the PGA does it, but I certainly don't have it done that way. These are just the raw strokes gained putting stats. So either way, I would pair really any of these slightly bad off the tee guys. Not so much, you know, -2 or even worse, unless, let's say, Andrew Putnam, if his, you know, he's already bad off the tee. Not doing great. I mean, decent putter, but not good off the tee. Decent putter, but really bad off the tee recently. So this would tell me he can obviously come back to the means, but he's struggling, and I would not putting any significant shares on Andrew Putnam. But either way, that's what I'm trying to get at. And then obviously, likewise, try to find positive off the tee golfers with negative putters, basically. And obviously, I would much rather see great season-long off the tee golfers, as well as like doing better this year when it comes to off the tee. And we have a pretty large list of golfers here. What is that? 48 golfers. But if we were to sort by putting, you know, maybe we try to find golfers in this range. Actually, this range would be pretty ideal. So there's not a lot. Oh, we're looking at off the tee. What am I doing? Putting. There we go. But yeah, I'm more looking kind of at this sweet spot of numbers right here. So Keegan Bradley, Dylan Fratelli, Scott Stalling, Siwoo Kim, Doc Redman, James Hahn, Sepp Straka, Jamie Lovemark, Bo Hauser, Carlos Ortiz, and Victor Hovland. So I like that group of golfers. I really like Carlos Ortiz. I also like Victor Hovland quite a bit as well. So I think those guys that I just named, looking at negative off the tee with positive putting and negative putting with positive off the tee, I think you can get 2 golfers out of that to go along with the other things that I've mentioned in this video to find a pretty good lineup. So that's what I was kind of excited. I can't wait to see how that pans out. And obviously we'll look at that when it comes to the review video. I didn't go by bucket primarily because I kind of already mentioned, I mean, the bucket score is already included in a lot of, I mean, it's included in the SweetSpot rank. It's not included in the game, but it's included in the rank. So really, if we're looking at salaries and stuff like that, and I know for my audio listeners, you're not going to see that or hear that, but the top of our salary leaderboard is just filled with golfers who did not play this tournament last year. So we're going to see last year ones. So I would say load up with your last year ones. And for my audio listeners, that would be Dustin Johnson, Tony Finau, Brooks Koepka, Tyrrell Hatton, Hideki Matsuyama, Victor Hovland, Sung J M, Adam Scott, Sergio Garcia, Jason Day, Corey Connors, Zach Johnson, Jordan Spieth, Siwoo Kim, and Shane Lowry. That's 8K and above. I think you find maybe 1, maybe 2 of those golfers. Perhaps maybe find a 6K golfer that is a last year one. Again, Rory Sabatini comes to mind. I guess when we look at our 6K golfers, 6'9", Sung King would not have been a last year one. And like I said, there was another one, John Rahm. He was a last year one. Oh, I'm sorry, we're looking at. Yeah, never mind. I was trying to find the 6K golfers that might be last year ones. So obviously 2017 didn't have really that, except for John Rahm, which obviously is a good golfer. I'll say you found a lot in 2018. Emiliano Grillo was a 1-1, or at least a last year one. Yeah, I was talking about 1-1s, wasn't I? So 2017 did not have a 1-1 in it, so please disregard that. We had one in 2020 and 2016 and 2014. Okay, so 2020 we did. Who was that? Scott Harrington, 6'9" golfer. That would be Rory Sabatini. Stuart Sink, another 6,900 golfer. So that's super interesting. Of our high price guys, did we have any 1-1s? We did not. We had a lot of guys that are high priced that played the week before. Again, not the greatest of fields, by the way. Last year. So we had 2020, 2016 was another one. We don't have pricing for this. Henrik Stenson would have been a 1-1 that year, as well as Sean O'Hare. So Stenson at that time, probably an elite golfer, if you want to call him that. At least at that time. I think that would be a good case. Sergio Garcia would have been in 2014, and so would have Ricky Fowler. So it's a mixed bag. Like, you can go with a top end 6 or a top end 1-1, or you go with a 6K golfer that, you know, the stats align. And I guess there aren't a lot of last year one, last week ones down here, but the ones that are pretty good. Yeah, there's not a lot, so it's actually not a terrible thing to go with. Let me state them for my audio listeners: Rory Sabatini, Adam Long, Charles Schwartzel, Francesco Molinari, Graham McDowell, CT Pan, Nate Lashley, Danny Lee, Jimmy Walker, Sung Kang, Sean O'Hare, Chris Kirk, Satoshi Kodaira, Eric Barnes, Kyle Hogan. Yeah, and then we're getting some of these guys down here, not worth mentioning. But if you follow the Monday qualifier, I can't remember what his Twitter handle is or what his name is, but the Monday qualifier guy on Twitter, he said Sam Fedone or Fedoni. I'm sure it's Fedoni, but that guy at 6K, he had said, put your money on a top 20 finish. Could have even been a top 10, but I'm pretty sure it was top 20. And at 6K, that'd be a fantastic result. So throwing that out there. Maybe you don't follow that guy. Maybe that'll be a nice little bit for you. And if you've lasted this long, hopefully it works out for you. But that's going to be, I know I didn't get through the rest of the buckets. I don't think it's worthwhile. Maybe in the future I should do that, just go by bucket. But I really liked using this game function, looking at scoring average as opposed to just going by buckets per se. Again, the buckets are baked into the SS rank. You can obviously see that up here. And if you've been paying attention throughout the video, obviously visually you can see that. I've tried to mention as many golfers as I possibly can. Jordan Spieth is a 1-1. So I'm going to leave you at that. Jordan Spieth being a 1-1. And for the rest of the golfers, don't play Russell Henley. He's a 6-1. I think I would give him a 12% chance. Not even that. I'd give him a 6% chance of making it inside the top 10. So I'm not going to anchor down my lineups with Henley, staying away from that. So either way, that's going to conclude my video. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I'll see you in the review. But probably see you sooner than that for the Masters. Either way, I'll see you soon.